Welcome to Radio Naturopath, the talk show about health and natural medicine. This show will first be broadcast on Wednesday, July 30th, 2025 on 91.7 FM WHUS stores. I am Fran Storch, ND, naturopathic physician. We're coming to you live from beautiful Mansfield Hollow, Connecticut. Comment below to let us know you're here and ask questions. You can also email me at radionaturopath@gmail.com. If you'd like to listen to the show at another time, you can check out our podcasts at whus.org, iTunes, Spotify, Patreon, and Buzzsprout. You may also watch the recorded Facebook Live episode at Fran Storch ND for 30 days and also on my YouTube channel at Radio Naturopath. The views expressed on this program do not reflect the views of the staff, management, or licensee of this station. The information presented on this show should not be construed as medical advice or direction. If you're having a medical condition, please consult with your physician. All right, so as far as me and my health update, I continue to improve somewhat. I still have some discomfort on the lateral left side of my leg. I have been riding my bike. I've done a whole bunch of bike rides, but not for very long. So the first little while, the first like 4 or 5 rides were below 10 miles, and the last ride I did was above 10 miles. Maybe that's not true. I think the 2 rides ago was over 10 miles, and then I did a 9-ish one. No, that's not true. The last 2 rides I did were over 10 miles. And it was the first one was harder. It was unexpectedly hard. And it was a distance and a route that I do all the time. And it really took a lot out of me. So, I'm building my cardio back and I'm building my strength back. And then the second one I did was kind of a somewhat easier ride. And it was 3 miles less. And I felt really good after that. It was exciting. Today I sat a lot because I was at the office and my legs complaining a little bit about that. I do find that with the stenosis, I think I have 3 favorite exercises that I've been doing, and I do them just about every day. I do have a whole set of exercises that I do that are for the stenosis and for the disc degeneration, and there's some core for strength in the back. But the ones that are basically to open up the spine and maybe open up a little bit of space for the stenosis, they are pelvic tilts, where I just lie on the floor with my back and my pelvis flat on the ground, and I tilt my pelvis in and I hold it for 10 seconds. And I do 2 sets of 10 of those. And I find that really helps. The second one that I like is knee to chest, also known as wind relieving pose in yoga. So I start at the stenosis is on the left side. So I start on the left side and I have my right leg out straight and I hold it to my chest. I hold it for 30 seconds. I switch to the right side, hold that knee to my chest with my left leg straight for 30 seconds. And then I pull both knees in and hold them both to my chest for 30 seconds. And then I straighten both legs out and put my arms over my head. And I do that for 30 seconds. So those are very basic exercises, and that bringing the that curving of the spine like that helps to open up space in between the vertebrae, and have some space, maybe open up the stenotic portions a little bit. I don't know how much it works, but it's helpful. The third, really, the one that I really love is called windshield wipers. And what you do is you have your feet a little wider. You're lying on your back and your knees are bent and your feet are a little bit wider than hip distance across. And then you just drop your knees to one side and you drop them to the other side and you go back and forth. And if you feel like holding for a little bit, you can do that on one side or the other. And I do a set of 10 of those. I used to do that only when I was in a yoga class, and now I'm doing it just as part of my PT exercises, because I also feel like it opens up the back. It's very soothing to my back when I do that. So today I didn't do my full set of PT exercises because I get up a little bit earlier and had to be at work a little bit earlier. So what I did was I just did those 3 exercises plus a short stretchy yoga practice. And that's all I did this morning. And this evening I'll do a bit of yin yoga and call it a night. So I'm pleased with my progress. I still have discomfort in this side. I don't know how much better it's going to get. And I'm going to wind up having a second opinion. So I'm going to do that in a week and a half, and we'll see what happens there. The second opinion would be to see if I'm a candidate for minimally invasive surgery. And if I am, and if they say that's appropriate, I might consider getting that. Because the minimally invasive, the procedure is very short. You're not under for very long. The procedure itself is probably and an hour and a half long, and you're in and out of the center in 2.5 hours, and then your recovery is a couple of days. So it might be a little bit longer than the cortisone shot. Cortisone shot, your recovery is a day, although they tell you don't do anything strenuous for a week, which I did. Cortisone shot is helpful, but cortisone shot does not correct anatomy. All the cortisone shot does is cool inflammation, and it did a great job of that, especially for the length of the femoral nerve. It didn't get very much into the compressed nerve on the lateral side of my left leg. So I still have discomfort there, but it's not so bad that I can't stand on it. It probably did help it a little bit, but it's still present, but it's not like I can lie down and not be in pain. I can put ice on it and not be in pain. I mean, I can feel it right now. I'm seated. So if I relax, I have less pain. And if I go to sleep, when I wake up the next morning, I'm in very little pain. And like if I had a hard day and I use my leg a lot, I'm going to have some discomfort at night. I can put ice on it. I can put my cream on it that has camphor and menthol and capsaicin in it, and that helps. And then I wake up in the morning and it'll be better. I really should ice every night. I was very tired last night, so I didn't do the ice. But it would really help me if I would do the ice every night. So I just do 15 minutes, put 15 minutes on that part of the leg that's uncomfortable, do 15 minutes on the lower back, 15 minutes a little higher up in the groin area, and then I do 15 minutes on my knee, my right knee, which is cranky. My right knee is unhappy because it's a little bit more compromised arthritis-wise than the left knee, and it's doing the lion's share of the work in holding me up because my left leg is not so strong. I definitely, if I try to stand on my left leg, it's not as strong, and I'm not as able to balance as well as I can on my right leg. So, time for some water. Okay, so very good. And one of the things I did is I got the raspberry flavor of my electrolytes, which is really, Marissa and I agree that's the flavor. Raspberry electrolytes, yum. Even better with the raspberry electrolytes is you take a slice of lemon or lime and squeeze it into the raspberry electrolyte water. Raspberry and lemon or raspberry and lime, they're good buddies. You can get a lot of products that have that combination. Ron is getting better and better. I think he's really turned a corner, and he's up and about a lot more. He still has to wear his collar, but he's been going to the Mansfield Community Center and riding the recumbent bike most days because he feels so much better doing the cardio. And he's figured out ways to ice himself. He moves around a bit, and then he does some ice, and he moves around some more, and he ices. And meanwhile, he's making dinner, and he's doing a little bit of stuff around the house. Before too long, he's waiting to get written back so that he can go back to work. I don't know if that's going to happen this week or next week, but at some point. And this weekend is the Quiet Corner Bike Tour, which is the Thread City Cyclers present a bicycle tour with a number of distances that you can ride. And I am the rest stop coordinator, so I'll be riding between the rest stops, helping them. And, our house is the drop-off point for the rest stop materials. And Ron is probably going to ride shotgun with the guy who's going to be running SAG. So that's exciting. So he gets to do something. I think he gets lonely. He wants to be around people. One of the guys who was dropping off some tables came in just now, and I invited him in, and I called Ron, and the guy's going to be stuck there for a while chatting while Ron chats his ear up, which is fine. It's great. It's, we all need to socialize. Socializing is the best thing. So anyway, so that's what's going on with us. So let's talk about some topics that might be interesting to discuss. One of the things I wanted to talk about is ultra-processed foods and weight gain. So what I try to tell people, like I had a perimenopausal lady in today that I was talking about weight. And one of the things, if you're not going to do, the GLP-1 enhancing drugs, because if you take a GLP-1 enhancing drug, either by the fact that it's increasing your GLP-1 or the fact that it makes you so queasy that you don't feel like eating, you're going to lose weight. I mean, and it does incredibly, whether you get nauseous or not, it does reduce your appetite. You just can't get the food in. What Mark Hyman warns about in terms of the GLP-1s is that the way that the drugs work, you lose lean tissue too. You lose a lot of muscle mass, and you can lose bone density as well. In fact, I saw a video of a young woman, someone in her 20s, who had taken one of the GLP-1 drugs and was diagnosed with osteoporosis. So that is something that can happen. That's the issue, is that GLP-1s burn up everything: fat, bone, muscle, lean tissue, everything. So it's very concerning. And if you're going to be on that drug for the rest of your life, it's not really a good scene. So ideally, what you want to do is, number one, be comfortable in your body. And number two, find a way to be at a weight that you're comfortable with without taking a drug, if you can possibly do that. If you are taking the drug and you're happy doing that, mazel tov, go for it. But if you can do it without taking the drug, you're better off, because it's more sustainable and you're not changing your body chemistry in a harmful way. When you change your body chemistry by stopping eating processed foods and stopping eating chemicals and instead eating real food, that's so much better for you. And whether you lose weight or not, you're still going to be much healthier. So this article says it's not just salt, sugar, and fat. Ultra-processed foods drive weight gain. So in the last 70 years, ultra-processed foods have come to dominate the U.S. diet. They're made from cheap industrial ingredients. They're engineered to be super tasty and high in fat, sugar, and salt. The rise of ultra-processed foods has coincided with growing rates of obesity. So a lot of people suspect they've played a big role in our growing waistlines. But it's something about the highly processed nature of these foods that drives people to overeat? There is a new study that suggests that the answer is yes. So there was a study that was conducted at the National Institutes of Health, and it's the first randomized controlled trial to show that eating a diet made up of ultra-processed foods actually drives people to overeat and gain weight, compared with a diet made of minimally processed or whole foods. The study participants in the ultra-processed diet ate an average of 508 calories more per day and ended up gaining an average of 2 pounds over a 2-week period. On the unprocessed diet, people ended up losing about 2 pounds on average over a 2-week period. The difference in weight gain for one group and weight loss for the others is phenomenal. We haven't seen anything like this before, said a nutrition professor, Dr. Popkin, at the University of North Carolina, who studied the role of ultra-processed foods in the American diet, but not in the current research. Dariush Mazafarian, who's the dean of Tufts University's Friedman School of Nutrition, Science, and Policy, agreed that the findings are striking. They're so impressive that the NIH researchers documented the weight gain, even though each meal offered on the 2 different diets contained the same total amount of calories, fats, protein, sugar, salt, carbohydrates, and fiber. Study participants were allowed to eat as much or as little as they wanted, but then ended up eating way more of the ultra-processed meals, even though they didn't rate those meals as being tastier than the unprocessed meals. Their landmark findings that the processing of the foods made a huge difference in how a person eats. That's important because the majority of foods now sold in the U.S. and increasingly around the world are ultra-processed. So an ultra-processed foods includes more than just the obvious subjects like chips, candy, packaged desserts, ready-to-eat meals. Also includes foods that some consumers might find surprising, like Honey Nut Cheerios or other breakfast cereals, packaged white bread, jarred sauces, yogurt with added fruit, frozen sausages, and other reconstituted meat products. Ultra-processed foods usually contain a long list of ingredients, many of them made in labs. So instead of seeing apples listed on a food label, you might get additives that recreate the scent of that fruit. Those foods are designed to be convenient and low cost and require little preparation. So the new research, which appears in the Journal of Cell Metabolism, was led by Kevin Hall, who's a senior scientist at the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases. He said that he was surprised by the findings because many people have suspected that it is the high salt, sugar, and fat content in ultra-processed foods that drives people to gain weight. When you match the diets for all of these nutrients, something about the ultra-processed food still drives the big effect on calorie intake, he says. So to conduct the study, Hall and his colleagues recruited 20 healthy, stable-weight adults, 10 men, 10 women, to live in an NIH facility for 4 weeks. All their meals were provided for them. Participants were randomly assigned to one of 2 diets for 2-week stretches. One group was fed an unprocessed diet full of whole or minimally processed foods, stir-fried beef, vegetables, basmati rice, orange slices. The other group ate an ultra-processed diet of meals like chicken salad made with canned chicken, jarred mayonnaise, relish on white bread, served with canned peaches and heavy syrup. When the 2 weeks were up, the groups were assigned to the opposite diet plan. So that's good that they did the crossover, because if they didn't do the crossover, you wouldn't know if this was because of something inherent in the people who were in each group. Because they did the crossover, what you want to see, if this study pans out, is that no matter who the people were, when they're eating the ultra-processed food, they gain weight, and when they're eating the whole foods, they lose weight. And if you eat the ultra-processed and then you switch to, that's more salient. The group that started out on the ultra-processed gained weight, and then when they go to the whole foods diet, they go ahead and lose weight. So that's very gratifying. And then the other direction is not so gratifying, because you're starting out on a whole foods diet and look, I feel great. And then you go and eat this junky food for another 2 weeks. But of course, after the 2 weeks of eating the junky food, you can go back to eating whole foods if you want to. So even though the study was small, it was also very controlled. Researchers knew exactly how many macronutrients and calories participants were eating and burning, because they took detailed metabolic measurements. They tracked other health markers too, blood glucose and hormone levels. Because participants were housed and closely monitored for weeks in a specialized metabolic ward, the kinds of studies are extremely difficult and expensive to carry out, but also makes the findings that much more significant, both researchers said. When you put people in a controlled setting and give them their food, it really lets you understand biologically what's going on, and the differences are striking. Previous studies have linked an ultra-processed diet to weight gain and poor health outcomes, like an increased risk for several cancers and early death from all causes, but those studies were observational, which means they can't show that the ultra-processed foods cause the outcome, only that they're correlated. Hall says the new study wasn't designed to see what it is about ultra-processed foods that drives overeating, but the findings do suggest some mechanisms. One thing that was intriguing was that some of the hormones involved in the food intake regulation were quite different between the two diets compared to baseline. So, for example, when the participants were eating the unprocessed diet, they had higher levels of an appetite-suppressing hormone called PYY, which is secreted by the gut, and lower levels of ghrelin, a hunger hormone, which might explain why they ate fewer calories. On the ultra-processed diet, these hormonal changes flipped. So participants had lower levels of the appetite-suppressing hormone and higher levels of the hunger hormone. Another interesting finding, both groups ate about the same amount of protein, but those on the ultra-processed diet ate a lot more carbs and fat. There's a concept called the protein leverage hypothesis that suggests that people will eat until they've met their protein needs. Hall says that this seems to be the case in the study, and it partially explains the difference in calorie consumption they found. Even though the meals were matched for calories and nutrients, including protein, the ultra-processed meals were more calorie dense per bite. In part, that's because ultra-processed foods tend to be low in fiber, so researchers had to add fiber to the beverages served as part of the meals to match the fiber content of the unprocessed diet. That means that participants in the ultra-processed diet might have had to munch through more carb than fat to hit their protein needs. And a last finding of note, people ate much faster, both in terms of grams per minute and calories per minute on the ultra-processed diet. Think about how fast you eat a bowl of ice cream versus how fast you eat a salad. You just can't eat a salad really fast because you have to chew it, it's full of fiber, and you really feel satisfied after you eat a salad. And sometimes if I eat a lot of protein before I eat my salad, I can't finish my salad. Hull says it might be that because the ultra-processed foods tend to be softer and easier to chew. People devour them more quickly, so they don't give their GI tracts enough time to signal to their brains that they're full, and they end up overeating. So Hall says his findings have implications for the diet wars, vegan versus low-carb or low-fat diets. They all have something in common. Proponents of healthy versions of those diets suggest that people cut out ultra-processed foods. He says that this elimination might account, at least in part, of the success that people have in those diets. So Popkin says the take-home message for consumers is we should try to eat as much real food as we can. That can be plant food or animal food. It can be unprocessed, beef, pork, chicken, fish, vegetables, and fruits. And one has to be very careful once one begins to go into other kinds of foods. But Popkin says the findings also present a challenge for the global food industry, how to preserve the convenience, abundance, and low cost of food without sacrificing health. Let's see if they can produce ultra-processed food that's healthy, that won't be so seductive and won't make us eat so much, but they haven't yet. So that's very interesting. So if you eat ultra-processed food, you're going to tend to gain weight. And they're not mentioning the idea that, these have chemicals in them. They're mentioning that they're just very processed. They're mushier. They're easier to throw down, and they tend to be higher in carbohydrates, salt, fat, and sugar. And so unprocessed foods don't have any of those things in it. So if you want some salt on your salad, you might sprinkle a little bit on, and it's not gonna have a salty dressing on, unless you throw a salty dressing on it. I mean, I tend to put on my salads, I use oil and vinegar, and the oil and vinegar has no seasoning in it. And then I add extra seasoning. I add like a tiny sprinkle of Himalayan salt and then some Italian seasoning, and that's my seasoning. I don't like to use salad dressing because salad dressing is very processed and tastes very heavy to me, and I like to taste the vegetables and just have a little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit of maybe garlic and onion and rosemary and stuff like that to bring out the flavors in the food. So that's very interesting. So eating ultra processed food, that's what I'm trying to tell people, that it's not a particular diet that is going to, now if you do a ketogenic diet, you're probably going to lose weight, but ketogenic diets are not very sustainable. If you're doing a ketogenic diet and you feel fantastic on it, I have no judgment about that. It's just been my experience, what I see with my patients. Patients don't tend to stay on those diets. They do it for a while, they have great results, and then they go off it because they're not sustainable. They get hungry and they miss their carbs and they miss things like that. And so I think what's more sustainable is to eat a variety of foods, but eat as whole and unprocessed as you can. Actual fruits, actual vegetables, actual meat with a little bit of natural seasoning on it, nuts and seeds, and avoid things in boxes and packages and things that are made from, processed flour, whether it's gluten-free or not. So, and that is a way that you can lose weight. If if you're eating, it's true. If you're eating chips and candy and, ice cream from that you didn't make at home, you're going to have a harder time losing weight than if you had the same exact amount of calories, but you ate all whole foods. So be aware of that. Okay, here's another article on real foods and weight loss. So here's 11 reasons why real foods can help you to lose weight. It's not a coincidence that the rapid rise in obesity happened around the same time highly processed foods became more available. Although highly processed foods are convenient, they've got a lot of calories, low nutrients, and increase your risk of a lot of diseases. But real foods are very healthy and can help you lose weight. And you see these pretty pictures of these little bowls of mostly plant stuff. This one looks like peas and broccoli and carrots and half a boiled egg and some, I don't know if that's quinoa, and some carrots. And this one has avocado and some, looks like pickled onions. This one has maybe some pickled cabbage and some bean sprouts and sweet potatoes. So these are nice bowls, and they have slightly different ingredients. They look lovely. What's a real food? All right, here's a few examples of real foods. They're single ingredient foods, have a lot of vitamins and minerals, no chemical additives, and unprocessed. So what's some examples? Apples, bananas, broccoli, chia seeds, berries, kale, sweet potato, tomato, brown rice, salmon, whole eggs, unprocessed meat. There are a lot of real foods in every food group, so there's a vast array you can incorporate into your diet. And here's why they help you lose weight. So real foods are nutritious. Whole unprocessed plant and animal foods have a lot of vitamins and minerals that are great for your health. Conversely, processed foods that are low in micronutrients and can increase your risk of health problems. Processed foods slow down weight loss in a few ways. For instance, a diet of processed foods that doesn't provide enough iron could affect your ability to exercise, since you need iron to move oxygen around in your body, so that would limit your ability to burn calories. A diet that's low in nutrients may also prevent you from losing weight by making you feel less full after eating. There was a study of 786 people where they compared participants' feelings of fullness on a low micronutrient versus a high micronutrient diet. Nearly 80% of participants felt fuller after meals on the high micronutrient diet, even though they were eating fewer calories than on the low micronutrient diet. When you're trying to increase your intake of nutrients, eating real foods is the way to go. They contain a variety of nutrients that are hard to find in a single supplement, including plant compounds, vitamins, and minerals. Nutrients in whole foods tend to work better together and are more likely to survive digestion than in supplements. So whole foods are packed with protein. Protein is the most important nutrient for fat loss. I'm always after my patients, Please eat more protein. Make your protein goals. Try to eat somewhere between 80 and 100 grams of protein, more if you're very physically active. Protein can help increase your metabolism, reduce your hunger, and affect the production of hormones that help regulate weight. Your food choices for protein are just as important as how much you eat. Real foods are a better source of protein since they aren't heavily processed. If you process foods, they can make several amino acids harder to digest and less available to the body. Those include lysine, tryptophan, methionine, and cysteine. Because proteins easily react with sugars and fats involved in processing to form a complex combination, whole sources of protein are typically higher in protein and lower in calories, which makes them better for fat loss. So 3.5 ounces of pork, which is a real food option, has 21 grams of protein and 145 calories, whereas the same amount of bacon, a processed food, has 12 grams of protein and 458 calories. The thing is, you're probably not going to eat 3.5 ounces of bacon. When I eat bacon, I eat 1/2 to 1 slice of bacon. And a slice of bacon usually has maybe 40-50 calories. So I'm eating far less than that. I use bacon for flavor. I don't eat it for a protein. I mean, it's a little bit of a protein source, but I eat it for flavor, and I don't eat it for, that's my protein for the evening. The protein for the evening is usually chicken breast, turkey breast, some kind of fish, turkey burger made from real ground turkey. So real food sources of protein include lean cuts of meat, eggs, legumes, and nuts, which I also eat. You can find a great list of high-protein foods all over the internet. So find some high-protein foods. Real foods don't contain refined sugar. The natural sugars found in fruits and vegetables are not the same as refined sugar. Fruits and vegetables have natural sugars, but also provide nutrients like fiber, vitamins, and water, which are needed as part of a balanced diet. Speaking of water, refined sugars, on the other hand, are often added to processed foods. The two most common types of added sugars are high fructose corn syrup and table sugar. Foods that are higher in refined sugars are often higher in calories and provide fewer health benefits like ice cream, cake, cookies, and candy. Eating more of these foods is linked with obesity, so if weight loss is your goal, it's best to limit them. Refined sugars also don't do very much to keep you full. Studies show that a high intake of refined sugar can increase production of the hunger hormone ghrelin and dim the brain's ability to make you feel full. Ghrelin makes your stomach growl. It's a hunger hormone. And when you have a lot of ghrelin around, you want to be eaten. Since real foods don't contain any refined sugars, they're a much better choice for weight loss. So unrefined foods, whole foods, have soluble fiber, which provides many health benefits, and one of them is aiding weight loss. It mixes with water in the gut to form a thick gel and may reduce your appetite by slowing the movement of food through the gut. Another way soluble fiber can reduce appetite is by affecting the production of hormones involved in managing hunger. There are studies that find that soluble fiber can decrease the production of hormones that make you hungry. Also, soluble fiber can increase the production of hormones that help you feel full, like cholecystokinin, glucagon-like peptide, GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1, and peptide YY. So glucagon-like peptide 1 is GLP-1. That is the drug that your GLP-1 enhancers are mimicking. And if you eat soluble fiber, it can help you increase your GLP-1. So real foods, so the soluble fiber, you're going to find them in beans, flax seeds, sweet potatoes, oranges, and oats. Ideally, to aim to eat enough fiber daily from whole foods since they provide other nutrients, but people who struggle to eat enough fiber might also find a supplement useful. So you can add I like to tell people to eat ground flax seeds or chia seeds in their diets. Real foods contain polyphenols, wonderful antioxidants. Polyphenols, which have antioxidant properties that protect against disease and also help you lose weight, they can be divided into multiple categories. Lignans are a polyphenol. Stilbenoids and flavonoids. So lignans are found in ground flax seeds and other nuts and seeds. Stilbenoids are they're in grapes. Resveratrol is a stilbenoid, and also flavonoids, and those are the pretty colored compounds that are in a lot of foods, like anthocyanins are a flavonoid. So is epigallocatechin gallate, EGCG, which is found in green tea and has many wonderful benefits. It's anti-cancer. Mostly what antioxidants do is they help to protect the integrity of DNA so that cells behave the way that they're supposed to behave and cells aren't damaged. so they can grow and do their metabolism and do all their things the way that they're supposed to do. EGCG may help extend the effects of hormones involved in fat burning, like norepinephrine, by inhibiting their breakdown. So there are studies that show that when you drink green tea, it can help you burn more calories. Most people in these studies burn 3 to 4% more calories a day. So the average person who burns 2,000 calories might burn 60 to 80 extra calories by consuming green tea. Real foods don't have artificial trans fats. Artificial trans fats are bad for your health and your waistline. They're artificially made by pumping hydrogen molecules into vegetable oils, which changes them from liquid to solid. That's how you make margarine. The treatment was designed to increase the shelf life of processed foods like cookies, cakes, and donuts. Many studies have found that frequently eating artificial trans fats can harm your health and your waistline. For instance, one study found that monkeys who ate more artificial trans fats increased their weight by 72% on average, compared to monkeys that ate a diet rich in monounsaturated fats like in olive oil. Interesting, all the fats the monkeys gained went straight to their belly area, which increases the risk of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and other health conditions. Real foods don't contain artificial trans fats. Some sources like beef, veal, and lamb do contain natural trans fats. Many studies found that unlike artificial trans fats, natural trans fats are harmless. So it's only when they've been produced in the lab, like by making margarine or other hydrogenated fats. So natural foods will help you to eat more slowly. Taking time and eating slowly is a piece of weight loss advice that's overlooked. When you eat slowly, it gives your brain more time to process your food intake and realize when you're full. When you eat real food, it can help you slow down your eating since they typically have a firmer, more fibrous texture that needs to be chewed more. Like I said, it takes you a lot longer to eat a salad than a bowl of ice cream. This simple action can help you lose weight by making you feel full with a smaller amount of food. For instance, a study in 30 men found that those who chewed each bite 40 times ate about 12% less food than those who chewed 15 times. Ron is really good at eating slowly. I'm not as good as he is. The study showed that participants who chewed each bite 40 times had less of the hunger hormone ghrelin in their blood after a meal and more of the fullness hormones GLP-1 and cholecystokinin. Also, real foods may reduce sugar cravings. The biggest challenge with weight loss often isn't the diet, but resisting cravings for sugary foods. This is challenging, especially if you're someone who eats a lot of sweets. Fruits like berries and stone fruit would be nectarines, peaches, plums. They can provide a healthier sweet fix, helping satisfy sweet cravings when you start reducing your sugar intake. It's also great to know your taste preferences don't last forever and can change as you change your diet. When you eat more real foods, it can help your taste buds adapt and your sugar cravings may decrease over time or even disappear. You can eat more actual food and still lose weight. One big advantage of real foods is they typically fill more of a plate than processed foods while providing fewer calories. That's because many real foods contain a good portion of air and water, which is calorie-free. So 226 grams or half a pound of cooked pumpkin contains about, half a pound. Got that? 45 calories and would take up a greater portion of your plate than a single slice of bread containing 66 calories. Foods with fewer calories and more volume can fill you up. There was a book called The Volumetrics Plan, which was about eating foods that take up a lot of space, which is going to be fruits and vegetables, vegetable soup, protein, things that take up volume. They will fill your stomach more. So they fill up your stomach with more calories and less volume. They stretch the stomach, and the stomach stretch receptors signal the brain to stop eating. So that's why you get really full when you eat a lot of vegetables and salad and stuff like that. The brain responds by producing hormones that reduce your appetite and increase your feelings of fullness. Great food choices that are high in volume but low in calories are things like pumpkin, cucumbers, berries, and even air pop popcorn. So whole foods will reduce your consumption of highly processed foods. Obesity is a huge health problem worldwide, with over 1.9 billion people over the age of 18 classified as either overweight or obese. Interestingly, the rapid rise in obesity happened around the same time that highly processed foods became very available. An example of the changes can be seen in one study that observed the trends in highly processed food consumption and obesity in Sweden between 1960 and 2010, 40 years. The study found a 142% increase in the consumption of highly processed foods, a 315% increase in soda consumption, and 367% increase in the consumption of highly processed snacks like chips and candy. At the same time, obesity rates more than doubled from 5% in 1980 to over 11% in 2010. Oh boy. Eating more real food reduces the intake of highly processed foods that provide few nutrients and are packed with empty calories and increase the risk of many health-related diseases. Real foods will help you make a lifestyle change. If you follow a crash diet, it can help you lose weight quickly, but keeping it off is the biggest challenge. Most crash diets will help you reach your goal by restricting food groups or drastically reducing calories. But if that style of eating is something you can't maintain long term, then keeping weight off can be a struggle. That's where eating a diet rich in real foods can help you lose weight and maintain those benefits long term. It shifts your focus to making choices that are better for your waistline and your health. Although this style of eating might mean weight loss takes longer to occur, you're more likely to maintain what you lose because you've made a lifestyle change. And also, while you're doing it, you're going to feel really good. So it doesn't matter that it takes a long time. The weight loss, I have to say this over and over. Weight loss, what's the first rule of weight loss? It's the same as the first rule of Fight Club. The first rule of Fight Club is don't talk about Fight Club. First rule of weight loss is don't talk about weight loss. Because weight loss is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you eat foods that are nutritious and fuel your body and make you feel good and improve your health. That's more important than you being at any point on the scale. If you are a little heavy, but you're eating all whole foods and you're very nourished, that's much better than if you're really skinny and if you ate a really restrictive diet that, has several days of fasting and is very ketogenic. So the bottom line is that a diet rich in real foods is great for your health and can help you lose weight. Real foods are more nutritious, contain fewer calories, and are more filling than most processed foods. If you replace processed foods in your diet with more real foods, you can take a big step towards living a healthier lifestyle. When you develop a habit of eating real food rather than following a short-term diet, it'll make it easier for you to maintain fat loss. So real food, real food, real food. Yes. So, okay. All right. So I guess the take home is eat whole unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, clean protein, legumes, and make stuff from scratch. Those are going to be the best things for you. All right, here's some healthy habits to help you to prevent chronic disease. So here are 5 habits that help you prevent chronic disease. All right, so a healthy lifestyle habit can help to slow or reverse the damage from high cholesterol blood sugar, says lifestyle medicine specialist Ladin Golubic. You can reverse diabetes, obesity, hypertension, high cholesterol, and heart disease. So here's how lifestyle affects your health. Leading causes of death worldwide are chronic diseases, and they can include cardiovascular disease, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, diabetes, stroke, and cancer. But you can prevent many of these chronic conditions by addressing the root cause, which is your daily habits. So how to prevent lifestyle diseases? Adjust your habits. Your diet, the advice is straightforward. Eat plants. We've said this already. Eat plants that are whole, unrefined, minimally processed. Eating plant-based fruits helps reduce diabetes, heart disease, and cancer risk. There's evidence that the Mediterranean diet can reduce the risk of developing cardiovascular disease and other chronic diseases. The diet is rich in vegetables, fruit, legumes, whole grains, fish, olive oil, and nuts. Other evidence suggests that consuming a fully plant-based diet can even reverse chronic diet-related conditions, including advanced heart disease. That eliminates meat, dairy, and eggs and includes fresh whole foods like vegetables, whole grain, legumes, and fruits. It's the most compassionate, most sustainable diet, and you can experiment. You don't have to go fully vegan tomorrow, but you don't have to go vegan at all. You can still eat whole foods and be very healthy. Physical activity, moving, helps all of your body's symptoms. You want to get at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise every week. So 150 minutes, think about that. That's half an hour, 5 days a week. So can you do that? It can be hard for some people to do, but it might not be as bad as you think. So you can start, and that means that if you can't do 30 minutes 5 days a week, you can take off some of that time and put it on the weekend, and then you do a little bit of something pretty much every day, and then you can hit it. Or maybe one day you do a long bout of activity on the weekend, so you do a full hour or more on the weekend, and then you can distribute that how you like over the rest of the week. So most of us can walk. Start with a 10-minute walk, repeat it 2 or 3 times a day, and then walk faster, have a minute or more of intense walking or climb a flight of stairs. If it's not an option, any physical activity will do. Simply move more and sit less. For sleep, you want to shoot for 7 to 9 hours of restful sleep each night. But if you can't help burning the midnight oil, try to have a consistent bedtime and wake up time, even on the weekend. Be physically active daily. Limit alcohol and caffeine. Put away your digital devices 90 minutes before bedtime and keep your sleep area cool, dark, and comfortable. So I found that really, for me to feel my best, I really have to be lights out in the no later than the 10 o'clock hour. That if I go to bed at 11 plus, I don't feel as good in the morning. And it's not just about sleeping like I need about 9 hours of sleep. But if I go to bed 10 o'clock or a little after 10, like in between 10 and 10:30, I'm going to feel better than if I stay awake. Even if I have the time to sleep the next morning, I'm not getting up for anything. If I do lights out after 11, I don't feel as good as if I do lights out at 10. So I'm hitting that sweet spot of high melatonin, low cortisol. That happens for me. That sweet spot happens for me in about the 10 o'clock, late 9 o'clock hour, definitely in the 10 o'clock hour. And by 11 o'clock, I'm starting, I guess my cortisol is starting to begin to rise and my melatonin is beginning to go down. Anyway, so reducing stress, chronic stress makes you less healthy. There's a surprise. Chronic stress is not your immune system's friend. You want to try mindfulness, meditation, gratitude to relieve stress and improve your physical, mental health. We tend to self-medicate with food, but there are healthy ways to relieve your stress. Mindfulness is a state of being where you're more present and aware of what you sense, feel, and experience, and a great way to cope with stress and relax. You want to do mindfulness practices daily, and you kind of have to schedule it. You want to find a quiet place, observe your body movement as you breathe, how your belly expands and shrinks, or how's the airflow in and out of your nostrils. You want to observe. Don't try to change the depth of inhalation or frequency of breathing. Let your body do what it normally does more than 20,000 times a day. Start with 5 minutes a day, and you can work up to 20 minutes. Pay attention to the present moment throughout the day. Even when you brush your teeth, brush it like it's the first time. You can use your non-dominant hand and then you'll have to pay better attention. You can practice mindfulness while taking out the garbage, washing the dishes, or noticing your breath while you wait for the light to turn green. Any activity where you practice mindfulness is going to make you feel better. You can meditate. 4x4 breathing or box breathing is a great thing. Box breathing, you sit up straight, relaxed in a comfortable, quiet location. Breathe out slowly, being mindful about releasing all the air from your lungs. Breathe in through your nose as you slowly count to 4 in your head. Be conscious of the air as it's filling your lungs. Hold your breath for a count of 4 or less, for a count that you can comfortably hold. Exhale for another count of 4. Hold your breath out for a count of 4 and release. Another way to do that is instead of exhaling on 4, exhale on 8. If you spend your time exhaling, if your exhalation time is longer than your inhalation time, that's a great way to lower cortisol and make you feel less stressed. Practicing gratitude. It's a great antidote for stress as well. There are studies where burned out healthcare workers who performed acts of gratitude, like remembering 3 good things or writing gratitude letters, reported positive effects on their well-being after a few weeks. Throughout the days, we tend to notice more things that are not going well, pay little attention to positive moments. We're likely to feel better when in the midst of a hectic day, we recognize and remind ourselves about all the gifts in life. Social connectedness or loving people keeps you emotionally and physically healthy. Even when you're physically distanced, virtual connections can still be transformative. So we regularly, every few days, I have a group chat with my sister and her family and my mother. And we get on Facebook Messenger and we talk to each other. And so that makes me feel like I'm still with my family, even though I haven't been in their presence for a long time. And I can find out the news, what's going on, how's everybody's health, how's everybody feeling. We have a lot of access to technology to help us avoid social isolation. Pretty much everyone has a cell phone, so you can be in touch with people, tell them how you're feeling. And, even in your work emails, ask people how they're doing in emails or, talk to people about what's going on in their lives. I talk to my staff about, we talk about silly things like what's going on in the news, or we were all sad that Ozzy Osbourne died, so we listened to some Ozzy Osbourne music. A lot of people passed this week. Ozzy Osbourne, Malcolm Jamal Warner, who was Theo Huxtable on The Cosby Show. He's a very sweet man. And that was tragic. He died he couldn't get out of an undertow. Even Hulk Hogan died. And Chuck Mangione, he died. And was there somebody else? Anyway, so there were a number of deaths this week that were sad and unfortunate. So why is it so hard to make healthy lifestyle changes? There's a few reasons why that can happen. There's a lack of access to healthy options. So if you drive down the street, there's cheap, unhealthy fast food options everywhere you go. I mean, when you go buy gas, you go into the convenience store and there's tons of candy and chips and not a lot of healthy stuff. This can make it hard to make good choices. So if you go to Spain, they have fruterias. They're stores that sell only fruits and vegetables on every other corner, and they're open until late in the evening. Imagine if those places were more common than fried food places. There's too many subliminal messages. Subliminal messages can sabotage good lifestyle habits. So think about advertisements showing beautiful people eating unhealthy food, or the images of yoga poses featuring young people instead of those who need yoga most, which is everybody, including older people with several chronic conditions. We have an instant gratification culture. It can take weeks or months to make something a habit, or sometimes longer to see the benefits of those. This is very, very good. What I have to remember to tell my patients is to be patient. I need my patients to be patient, and I need to be patient too. That when you take a GLP-1 drug, you're going to lose weight pretty quick, but you have to take this drug and you have to suffer the side effects and the cost and all these other things, and you're going to reduce your appetite. I mean, it doesn't help you to be in touch with your body. But if you learn how to eat whole foods, that's an act of mindfulness. And it's true that it's going to take you longer to get healthy. But I guarantee you, if you eat a diet of only whole unprocessed foods and you get rid of processed foods, unhealthy foods, sugar and junk, and you do that for 2 weeks, after 2 weeks, regardless of what you weigh, you're going to feel magnificent. You probably will have lost some weight too, but that's not as important as how great you're going to feel. So if you want to maintain healthy habits long term, you can take small steps. Do evolution rather than revolution. Choose achievable goals. Listen to a meditation track for 5 minutes 3 times a week. Add more days as you're making progress. I know for me that when I started doing yin and restorative yoga, after a while I began to crave it, and now it's my habit. In the evening, so I can come down from my stressful day, I do yin or restorative yoga. And I really want to do it, and I look forward to it, and I set it up as the last thing I do before I settle down for the night. So that's something that happens when your body realizes that you're doing something that's good for it. You're going to want to do it more, but it takes a while for that to happen. So again, be patient. Don't be critical of yourself. Set realistic expectations. Embrace progress, not perfection. Don't let perfect be the enemy of good, says Jill Coleman. And she's quoting somebody else. But anyway, shout out to Jill Coleman for teaching me that. Learn stuff. Educate yourself. Learn the science behind opinions. Get advice from medical professionals and medical associations like the American Heart Association, American Cancer Society, Medical Clinical Society of Oncology, American College of Lifestyle Medicine, me, naturopathic conferences, naturopathic opinions. Think big picture. Those who reflect on what's important to them and how they fit into a larger whole have better results. Food choices are terrific examples. It takes an enormous amount of energy and production of greenhouse gases in land and water used to produce a pound of beef compared to a pound of beans. So our food choices not only affect our health but the well-being of life on the planet. That doesn't mean don't eat beef. It just means do eat beans. And I find that if I eat beans, I don't need to eat as much animal protein. So I've been enjoying some curried chickpea salad. So I'm getting chickpea salad from the co-op, which is going to have minimal ingredients. And I had a Mediterranean one and I've had a curried one, and those are really yummy. And I can make chickpea salad at home. I probably should try that and find it and season it the way that I might like. All right, so let me see. Those are your healthy habits. Okay, so one of the things that I've been seeing is that some of my patients come in and they have elevated triglycerides. So what are triglycerides? Triglycerides are the form that fat takes when it enters your blood. And when you eat, your triglycerides go up. Some people have excessively high triglycerides, and that's a problem because triglycerides are prone to being oxidized. They're prone to oxidative damage. So you want your triglycerides to be low. So if you do a fasting blood work, a blood lab, and they draw your triglycerides. You want them to be, it's the reference range for adults is 150. But if you're in, the lower they are, the better off you are. So we like to see triglycerides in the double digits. And the lower in the double digits. I had a patient today whose her doctor was concerned about her because she had an LDL of 131, but she had an HDL of 72 and triglycerides of 51. And I said, you're fine. Don't even worry about it. That's gorgeous. You have very low triglycerides. You have high HDL, which is cardioprotective, and that LDL is only a little bit elevated. It's not going to hurt you. So triglycerides will go up if you eat unhealthy fat, like artificially created trans fats, which you're going to find in poor quality potato chips and pastries and stuff like that. Also, if you eat too much sugar, your triglycerides are going to tend to go up. If you have blood sugar regulation issues, you're going to tend to have higher triglycerides. And if you don't get any exercise, you'll tend to have higher triglycerides. Not everybody does, because there's genetics that are involved in this as well. So how do you lower your triglycerides? So when you have high triglycerides, it can increase your risk of cardiovascular disease. If you limit the amount of sugar, carbs, and trans fats you eat, that's just what I just said, along with regular exercise and other dietary changes, it can help to decrease your triglyceride levels. So triglycerides are a type of fat that's found in your blood. After you eat, your body converts the calories you don't need into triglycerides and stores them in your fat cells to be used for energy later. While triglycerides are an important energy supply for your body, having too many triglycerides in your blood can increase your risk of heart disease. About 26% of adults in the U.S. have elevated blood triglycerides, which is over 150 milligrams per deciliter. When you're obese or you have unmanaged diabetes, regularly drinking alcohol and following a high-calorie diet, that can all contribute to high blood triglycerides. You can lower triglycerides through various dietary and lifestyle changes. So aim for a weight that's healthy for you. How do you do that? By eating whole foods. We just told you. It turns out when you eat more calories than you need, you make triglycerides and your body will store them in your fat cells. When you work towards a moderate body weight by consuming fewer excess calories, that can help lower your triglycerides level. Losing even 5 to 10% of your body weight can significantly reduce your triglyceride level. Again, I don't want you to focus on weight loss. I want you to focus on eating whole foods, getting exercise, reducing stress. While the American Heart Association recommends consuming no more than 100 to 150 calories of added sugar a day, there's a study that found that the average American eats about 308 calories of added sugar every day. Added sugar is commonly found in sweets, soft drinks, and fruit juice. Extra sugar in your diet may be turned into triglycerides, which can lead to an increase in blood triglyceride levels, along with heart disease risk factors. There was a review a few years back that included data on almost 7,000 people, found that those who consumed sugar-sweetened beverages regularly were 50% more likely to have high triglycerides than those who didn't. So we're talking about your soda and your sweetened iced teas and things like that. And your the thing you get from the cafe that's coffee with a lot of other stuff in it. And there was a study that found that consuming high amounts of sugar is associated with higher triglyceride levels in children. Several studies have shown that low-carb diets can lead to a decrease in blood triglyceride levels. Even a slight change, like replacing sugar-sweetened beverages with water, could decrease your triglycerides in some people. If you follow a lower-carb diet, that doesn't mean like a ketogenic diet, but just lower carb, extra calories from carbs in your diet are converted into triglycerides and stored in your fat cells. Not surprisingly, low-carb diets have been linked to lower blood triglyceride levels. A study of a randomized controlled study found that people who reduced their carbohydrates typically saw a reduction in triglycerides at 6, 12, and in 24 months. Across the studies, triglyceride levels decreased the most in 6 months after starting a reduced calorie diet. There was a study that compared low-fat and low-carb diets. Researchers found that 6 to 12 months after starting their relative diets on the low-carb diet, they had greater decreases than triglycerides than in the low-fat. You want to eat more fiber, which is regularly found in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains, found in many other plant sources like nuts, seeds, cereals, and legumes. If you have more fiber in your diet, it can slow the absorption of fat and sugar in your small intestine, helping you reduce your triglyceride levels. There was a study with 117 adults who were overweight or obese. When they ate dietary fiber, it led to lower triglycerides levels. There was a study in adolescents who found that consuming a high-fiber cereal with alongside a breakfast high in fat reduced postprandial high triglyceride levels. When you exercise regularly, when exercise is paired with weight loss, aerobic exercise is very effective at decreasing triglycerides. The American Heart Association says get at least 30 minutes of aerobic exercise 5 days a week by walking, jogging, cycling, swimming, however you'd like to do it. All exercise helps reduce triglycerides levels. However, some research has found that higher intensity exercise for a shorter amount of time is more effective than exercising at moderate intensity for a longer period of time. When you exercise moderately for a long time, you actually increase your cortisol, which can ultimately put a bit more sugar into your blood and therefore triglycerides. Limit your trans fats. Artificial trans fats are added to processed foods to increase their shelf life. You're going to find them in pastries, in boxed pastries, and in chips and snack foods. Commonly found in commercially fried foods and baked goods that are made with partially hydrogenated oils, and they're also found in small amounts in some animal products. In recent years, the addition of trans fats to foods has been banned in the U.S., which is great. And trans fats are also inflammatory. They've been attributed to many health problems, including increasing your LDL and cardiovascular disease. There was a review of 16 studies that reported that replacing trans fats with polyunsaturated fats could help to reduce your triglyceride levels. You want to try to eat fatty fish at least twice a week. The omega-3 fatty acids are going to help lower your triglycerides. I will put people with high triglycerides on fish oil too. The 2 servings of fatty fish a week can help to reduce your risk of heart attack and stroke. If you eat salmon twice a week, it can significantly reduce your blood triglyceride concentration. Salmon, herring, sardines, tuna, and mackerel are fruit kinds of fish that are especially high in omega-3 fatty acids. Increase your intake of unsaturated fats. So that's going to be your monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats. So that's going to be things like olive oil, nuts, avocados, which we eat tons of. Present in vegetable oils, fatty fish, nuts and seeds like walnuts, flax seeds, and chia seeds. That olive oil consumption does decrease triglyceride levels. It also does so significantly less than other types of plant oil. There was a study that analyzed a population of indigenous people in Alaska and found that saturated fat was associated with increased blood triglycerides, while polyunsaturated fat was associated with lower. So establish a regular meal pattern. When you have insulin resistance, that can contribute to your high blood triglycerides. So actually, we're running out of time, so I want to, I'm going to start with establishing a regular meal pattern next week, because I'm out of time, and this is a very important topic, so I'm not going to leave this, and I don't want to rush through it, and I want to give you more information. So I'm going to let you go now. You have been listening to Radio Naturopath, the talk show about health and natural medicine. I am Fran Storch-ND, naturopathic physician. You can email me with questions and comments at radionaturopath@gmail.com. If you'd like to listen to the show at another time, you can check out our podcast at whus.org, iTunes, Spotify, Patreon, Buzzsprout, and YouTube. You may also watch the recorded Facebook Live episode at Fran Storch-ND. The views expressed on this program do not reflect the views of the staff, management, or licensee of the station. The information presented on the show should not be construed as medical advice or direction. If you're having a medical condition, please consult with your physician. Thank you for listening to Radio Naturopath, your show where you can learn about the best of science and nature. We'll be back with more Radio Naturopath next week at 91.7 FM, WHUS stores, and WHUS.org.